Hello, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be talking to you about conscious celibacy. And so in the context of this conversation, I'm going to be sharing with you my own journey with being celibate, which is a journey I began over 6 years ago. And I'm also going to be talking to you about the value of celibacy, or you can call it abstinence if you'd like. I'm going to be talking to you about the value of it and all of the benefits that going into a practice of conscious celibacy or abstinence can have for you in your life as a woman. As a man too, if you're a man watching this video, but I just assume that most of the people that are watching my content are women. So that's who I'm speaking to, but this definitely applies to my men as well, who are curious about what a celibacy journey can look like for them. So there's a couple of things that I want to talk about. My journey, I want to talk to you about what the sexual energy exchange actually is, especially from a heteronormative standpoint, meaning a man and a woman engaging in physical intimacy together. And then, like I said just a moment ago, I'm going to walk you through a lot of the benefits that it can bring into your life from a physical standpoint, spiritual standpoint, from a healing yourself standpoint. I'm just a big fan of celibacy, and I've been really excited and inspired and heartened by the rise of women that are engaging in this practice of restoring themselves through abstaining from sexual intimacy with other people. So for me, with my journey, I started practicing, and I say practicing because in the 6 years that I began this journey, I have had a couple of experiences that were very necessary for me to remember my devotion to the practice of conscious celibacy. And I might share a little bit about that either in this video or another video. But what I will say is that about 6 years ago, I ended a relationship with my partner at the time. And we had been together for a couple of years. And after that relationship ended, I was so heartbroken and so just despondent and depressed after that relationship ended that I just really didn't have any desire to engage in physical contact with anybody else. And the relationship that I had with this person was a really, really beautiful relationship, and our intimacy was extremely powerful and beautiful and deeply pleasurable, and it really opened my heart and my eyes. It opened my body to experiences that I had never had before. And when that relationship ended, I knew that if I didn't have anything that was at the very least on this level or better, I didn't want it. And so when I speak about this person, this last partner that I had, and he really raised the bar for me when it comes to love and intimacy and sensual pleasure and all of the things that come from, being in a relationship with somebody, or in my opinion, should come with being in a relationship with somebody when you're sharing that intimate space. And so this man, he set the bar so high for me. And, like I said, I knew that I did not want to have anything less than what I had experienced with him. And so it made it a lot easier for me to enter into the practice of abstaining from any sexual contact with other people. One of the things that also came about in this relationship was, or really after this relationship, was I needed a lot of healing. I just needed a lot of healing. There were so many of my shadows and wounds that surfaced in that relationship. And one of the reasons why I ended that relationship was because I needed some really, really deep healing for myself. And Spirit just kept telling me over and over and over again, you need to be on your own. You need to be on your own. It's time to be alone. It's time for your solo journey. And I listened to Spirit, and that's one of the reasons why I broke up with this person and ended the relationship. Now, prior to this relationship, I was married before, which is something that I don't really talk about very often, but I'll start sharing more about that experience as well. in upcoming videos. But I was married to the first person the first man that I ever had a sexual experience with. I met him when I was 18. We got married when I was 23. And I was with him until I was 30 years old. And when our relationship ended, there was a very short window where I was single before I met the partner that I spoke about earlier, who sort of like raised the bar for me in terms of relationships and love and divine union. And in that very short window that I was between my relationship with my ex-husband and then my partner, at that time, I, engaged in some casual sexual experiences, which was very, very new to me because, like I said, I married my first and had been with him all throughout my 20s. And so I had never really been with other men before. And so for this very short window, I had a couple of casual experiences and realized very quickly that I did not like spreading my energy in that way. And I wasn't at the level of spiritual consciousness that I am now as it relates to sex. And so it's one of the reasons why I really had no issues with engaging casually with men at that time. But then shortly after that, I met my partner whom I was with for a couple of years. And then once I was with him, and then just all of the shadows started coming to the surface, I really started having like the next phase of my spiritual awakening and realizing that I had very, very deep work to do. I decided after that relationship ended that I wanted to only allow myself to experience any type of sexual intimacy on my own. So when I talk about celibacy, I talk about it, and that's why I say conscious celibacy, because it's not coming from a place of not having access to intimacy with other people, because we all know that for women, it's very, very easy to get a man to sleep with you if that's what you want. It's not hard at all. It's very, very easy. And so it's not coming from that place. It's coming from a place of just being conscious of the value of intimacy with me, the value of my womb, the value of allowing a man to enter into my sacred temple and treating that as something that is very, very precious, which was not really the lens or the consciousness that I had viewed sexuality from prior to this past relationship. And so coming from that lens of being aware of the power of the sexual energy exchange, which I'm going to get into in a moment, recognizing that I didn't want to just open myself up to anybody, that I really wanted to guard access to me, is what fueled and continues to fuel my journey. Now, I talk about a couple of experiences that I've had in these 6 years where the first time I broke my celibacy, I guess you could say, I had been practicing for about 3.5 years. And at that time, I was sort of questioning what I felt was a pattern of feeling very dogmatic about my beliefs and my practices. And I was sort of just investigating whether or not I was being overly restrictive or overly dogmatic with myself about some of the practices that I had been engaging in as part of my spirituality. And so I decided to sort of like test myself and dip my toe in the waters to see if this was something that I was just doing for the sake of doing it, or if it was because I was adhering to a label that I had given to myself, or if this was something that felt really important and integral for me. And so when I decided to sort of dip my toes into the waters and started talking to men again, and I had an experience with a man that immediately showed me that not only did I need more time for myself, but that I did not want to engage intimately with a man who I did not have a really deep knowing of, like a deep friendship, a deep relationship with. And that was a value and a vow that I made to myself that I would adhere to from moving forward from that point. So it was a very, very painful lesson. I remember feeling a lot of shame and a lot of frustration with myself afterwards, because I felt like I had sort of gone back on my promise and my devotion to myself. But I also recognize and having grace for myself that it was an exploration, it was an experiment, and it was something that I needed to experience in order to recommit to that level of devotion that I had for myself. And so again, going back to like the definition of celibacy or abstinence, for me, it's about maintaining my own sensual practice with myself, which I've talked about in my my work on my Instagram page. And I'll if you'd like to see a video about sacred sensuality and how I honor and practice sacred sensuality for myself, let me know and I'll make a video about that. But what was I saying? I lost my train of thought. Anyway, I'll just go back to what I was thinking about before I went on that little segue or that little tangent. The practice of conscious celibacy for me is about honoring sensuality, honoring that practice, and utilizing that with myself in terms of manifestation and staying connected to my body, staying connected to my breath and honoring my womb and giving myself the releases that I need in order to let go of mindsets that I'm holding on to or beliefs that I'm holding on to and releasing those through the act of, I don't know if I can say the word out loud, but it starts with an O, the big O. You know what I'm talking about? That type of release has been a big part of my practice. But what I love to teach as it relates to celibacy for women and why it's so important for women, especially women who are drawn into my work, women who are taking my Selfish Bitch class or coming into my Selfish Bitch initiation, women who don't have good boundaries, women who don't have a strong sense of themselves, women who have a poor relationship with their bodies. Maybe they're not attuned to the wisdom of their body, or they have engaged in promiscuity in the past, or have had unconsensual experiences that happened to them, whether as children or as adults. This is extremely important and valuable for women who are in this stage of their spiritual evolution and spiritual practice, because a lot of women just don't understand what that energetic exchange actually is and what it means when you're engaging in that with a man. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you just a little bit about, or a little excerpt from something from my Selfish Bitch workshop that I've taught multiple times. And I'm going to be diving more deeply into these concepts in the initiation that's coming up on January 7th. But I want to read to you what I wrote. And this is what I share in this class every time. And it always just blows women's minds when I share this. So this is my whole section about sex, and it comes after my section called Men and Why They Deserve Less. So I'm just going to read from this. Sexual energy is creative energy. Creative energy is sexual energy. Creative and sexual energy is driven by consciousness or lack thereof. When you engage in sex with a man, you're not just exchanging energy, you are exchanging consciousness. As the feminine, you are a receptive being, which means that any energy and consciousness that he carries within him is deposited into your portal. You receive all that he is, and then you magnify it. Now, before I continue on, I want to expand on that a little bit, because a lot of women, they're always like, their eyes get wide when they hear me say that part of them, that part of this this lesson, because they've never heard sex framed in that way. It's new to them, but it resonates so deeply within their body because they immediately remember all of the experiences that they've had with partners in the past where, you know, they've after the act of intimacy is over, they're left feeling drained, or they're feeling lethargic, or all of a sudden they're depressed or despondent, or they're just not feeling like themselves. And it's because, you know, these men, what they're doing is they know, even if only subconsciously, the nature of your power as a woman. And this is why they're so drawn to you and they're so desperate to be inside of you. And they don't have access to their inner feminine, and they can only experience creation through you. And so when they are inside of you, what they do is they dump their self-loathing into you, and then they take your magic for themselves. And this is why so many women look and feel drained in their relationships, and then they experience the glow up after a breakup. That glow up that women experience comes from no longer being siphoned from. It comes from no longer allowing this person to have access to your portal of creation, and no longer giving them permission to deposit all of their darkness, all of their muck, all of the things within themselves that they are holding on to, and that's subconsciously ruling their lives, that they despise on a subconscious level. But because these men don't know how to access their inner feminine, because they cannot be vulnerable, because they don't care about healing, because they don't care about restoring themselves, they seek you out as a woman because you have this portal of creation here. You have the ability to magnify and multiply and transmute, but a lot of women don't know this about themselves. And so these men, they're seeking you out and they're pouring all of this into you. They're dumping this into you. And then you wonder why you start to feel a disconnect with your body. You wonder why you are feeling, dissociated from your purpose, why your passion is drained, why your body starts to change. You start maybe gaining weight, or you start breaking out. You're bloated all the time. You're having yeast infections or bacterial vaginosis, or intercourse becomes painful, or your body is just not responding to you in the way that it used to respond to you. And it's because you've taken on this frequency and this energy that this man is giving to you. And so this is also why men will look like crap after a breakup. And it's because they've lost access to that energy supply. They've lost access to that feminine energy. Every time I ask this question, like, no one raises their hand, but I always ask, how many of you have ever experienced or witnessed a man have a glow up after a breakup? Crickets. Crickets. You never see that. Men don't experience a glow up after a breakup because they've lost access to that feminine energy supply. Typically, what happens is after a breakup, a man will try to replace that feminine energy supply as quickly as possible. So this is one of the reasons why after a breakup, men will immediately jump into a new relationship, or they will not break up with you unless they already have another woman lined up. So men cannot be without access to that feminine energy. They need that in order for them to receive the magic of the feminine, but also for them to release all of their self-hatred, their self-loathing, all of their shadows and wounds they deposited into your portal. So if you choose to engage in sexual acts with a man, it should be with a man who has been properly and long vetted by you to establish his worthiness to enter your sacred portal of creation. So when I talk about long vetted, what I mean is really taking your time to get to know this person. And this was, a mistake that I made when I came out of my celibacy after that 3.5 years, and I engaged with somebody that I didn't give myself enough time to really get to know. There was a lot of chemistry and passion, and there was the intensity of the attraction and all of those amazing, wonderful feelings and sensations that arise when you meet somebody that sort of activates you from that space. But making decisions to engage with somebody from those feelings, those emotions, those sensations, to me is not the most intelligent and wise way of engaging with that energy, because sometimes those activations that we're experiencing are karmic. They are there to teach us lessons, or that person is a karmic lesson for us, that if we are to engage in a relationship with them, or not even necessarily a relationship, but that exchange with them, it will or can create chaos in our lives to teach us deeper lessons about ourselves. And so giving yourself that space to really get to know someone and vet them and see the character of this person and really learn the character of this person, which you simply can't discover in a few days or even a few weeks, and sometimes not even a few months with another person. And so it's always my recommendation that women engage in celibacy from a place of really wanting to get to know a person so that they can trust their judgment in vetting this person, making sure that they are worthy of entering their portal of creation. 99% of men don't deserve to breathe the same oxygen as you, much less be given access to the most precious part of your body. And if you cannot learn to be selfish anywhere else in your life, this is the most important area to cultivate this energy, because your life literally depends upon it. Not just in terms of, the energy that's being deposited into your womb space, but from the lens of pregnancy or attracting diseases or infections, and also from the fact that when you're engaging in intimacy with a man, that is literally the most vulnerable state that you can be in, where you're fully open, fully exposed to this person. And a lot of women are harmed during the intimate act. And so guarding that and being very, very, very intentional with who you allow to experience you in this most intimate level is extremely, extremely, extremely important. And this is one of the things that I like to teach in my Selfish Bitch classes, because it's not just about setting boundaries with family and friends or at work or even in relationships with men. It's about really giving yourself space to recognize why those boundaries are in place in the first place. And when you're engaging in intimacy with somebody too soon, or before you've really given yourself a chance to heal from the things that have happened to you, to heal from your low self-esteem or your low self-worth, to heal from being a people pleaser, to heal from being an overgiver, when you're allowing people to access you in that way, it clouds your ability to operate from a place of really, really clear discernment and judgment. And so for women, going into a journey of celibacy it's a very powerful way to get to know yourself, because a lot of women have never lived their lives without allowing someone to have access to them sexually. A lot of women, their very first experience was, unfortunately, as a child, that something was done to them that they didn't consent to. And then from that place, it solidified in them this idea that their body and their being belongs to other people for other people's pleasure. And typically it's for men's pleasure. And so a lot of women are, from a very young age, whether as a child, meaning like a prepubescent child, or even in adolescence engaging in sex for their very first time, have continued to give sexual access to them for years and years and years, never going more than a few weeks or even a few months without somebody entering your temple, entering your womb. And so how can you really know yourself? How can you really know who you are? And how can you really know and understand your body when you've never given yourself a chance to have a period of genuine solitude, of genuine celibacy, of where nobody else has access to you in that way? And a lot of women don't really know what that feels like and what that looks like. And so it's a very beautiful and powerful way to get to know yourself on a very, very deep level. And so for me, even though I had only been in 2 relationships by the time I decided to engage in my practice of conscious celibacy, it has been such a profound way for me to get to know myself, because I was with someone from the age of 18 until 30, was only single for a brief amount of time, and then was in another relationship, and we broke up. I think I was 32 when we broke up. The second partner that I had, and I'm 38 years old. I'm going to be 39 in a couple of months. And so from the ages of 18 until I was 32 years old, 14 years of my life, someone had access to me in that way. It was either my husband, a brief period of casual encounters, and then my partner of 2 years who had that access to me. But I had never had a period of my life as an adult woman where no one had physical or intimate access to me. And so getting to learn my body and getting to learn, have a deeper relationship with my own pleasure outside of somebody else having access to me was so incredible and so loving and so beautiful. And it really deepened my self-love. It deepened my connection to myself. It deepened my trust in myself. And it has deepened my discernment to recognize very, very quickly when something is for me or when something is not for me. And that's a really, really beautiful and powerful lesson that a lot of other women can learn. especially when it comes to discernment, because so many of the women that come to me and come into my work are women that struggle with discernment, that struggle with boundaries, that struggle with saying no. And when you go into the practice of celibacy or conscious abstinence, and you allow yourself permission to be in your own frequency, to be unclouded or what's the word I'm looking for? Conditioned, being conditioned by other people's desires for you that are being imposed upon you, it is an incredibly transformative experience to have. And it's one that I highly, highly recommend. And it's something that I always talk in depth about in my work. And so if this is something that's speaking to you, if you want to know more about conscious celibacy and what that can look like for you, then drop a comment down below and let me know how this is landing for you. And if you want to start integrating this practice into your life and understand more of the benefit of how this will help you in all spheres of your life, not just in your relationships with men, but celibacy is about knowing your body. It's about trusting yourself. It's about honoring your yes and honoring your no. It's about listening to the cues that your body is constantly giving out when you're connecting with other people, when you're in relationships with other people. This is the work that we're doing in the Selfish Bitch Initiation. It's about reprogramming out of that good girl consciousness that says that I have to be obedient, that other people's desires and pleasures are more important than my own, and rising into the sovereign woman who recognizes that her pleasure is paramount to her mission. Her pleasure is paramount to her self-love and her devotion to herself and her devotion to her mission. So thank you so much for dropping in to listen to me share this today. I don't want this video to go too long today, but it's something that I really wanted to talk about, and I will continue to talk about in future videos. So once again, drop down in the comments. Let me know how this landed for you. Are you on a journey of celibacy? How long have you been on your journey? What are some of the transformations that you have experienced in your journey? Or if it's something that you're curious about and have wanted to do, let me know that as well in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts, your feedback, your questions, your requests for other videos. Please like, please subscribe, please comment. Let me know what you want to hear about next. And if you were interested in joining the Selfish Bitch Initiation that begins on January 7th, the link to sign up is in the description box. And I will also drop a comment with the link to that, so that you can sign up. I've already had multiple women sign up from my YouTube videos over the past week, and I'm so excited to go and dive deeper into this initiation with you all. Right now, we're still in the early bird pricing, which means it's only $222 to sign up, but the prices will go up from $222 to $555, finally to $777 by the time we begin on January 7th. I love you all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day wherever you are in the world, and I'll see you in the next video.